Charles Beacham, how you doing?
Really good, sir.
Yeah, so you introduced me to my wife. I was working at New San Luis Missionary Baptist Church, and she was over dance ministry at the time. And you were the organist at the church. And one day you introduced me to her. So I have you to thank for that.
Yeah, but I would definitely say that was one of the more easier hookups. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, I already knew that Lori noticed you. So it wasn't, I can't take credit and make it seem like it all came out of the blue, like, my creation. But definitely, to me, on the outside looking in, it was like one of those perfect matches, two greatly creative people who were in the same church, going the same way, that type of thing. So, I'm just glad to be part of it, but I can't take too much credit, like I said.
Well, thank you nonetheless. I'm a pretty shy character, especially around the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So that was you did me a favor. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you met Lori? And I mean, I'm sure you probably met her at the church, but I know that you guys collaborated on some projects even before I knew you. I mean, you guys have more history than than I have with her.
Yeah, she was over the dance ministry, and they used to do a lot of dancing to different songs. And I guess at a certain point, it got to be too confining because her creativity was getting bigger than a song could capture in the moment. So then she started writing down these ideas, and she would come to me, and I had never even dreamed of going this way, but she just come to me like, I have a idea about a tree. I want you to make this tree. And I'm sitting there like, how am I going to translate trees into music? But she had so much belief in me and so much belief in her idea and what God had gave her that, I went with it. And many times it came out to be, something, really beautiful that I would have never even considered. Even her 9/11 was probably the biggest one that I did for her when the planes had crashed and into the buildings in New York. And so she wanted me to recreate that and make it a movement so that they can dance to it. And after a few days of us getting together and going over notes and change this and do this and do this and do this and do that, we finally got it to where it was her masterpiece. So I was just happy to be part of it because she opened me up to an area of music that I use to this day that I probably never would had I not met her and been pushed like that.
Yeah, she's about as creative a person as I know. I know a lot of really creative, really talented folks, and she's super super creative in a lot of ways. I mean, maybe I've met some folks that were as creative as she is, maybe in one aspect, but she has a multi-dimension thing that it's hard to match. So one thing like work is the whole thing about like and she says this little by the way. She wanted to make sure I said I said that. But one thing about her is working with a dancer in particular is coordinating or translating counts of 8 into bars, bars of music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at first when I started working with her, I would I would be trying to get her to say things differently. Like, I don't know what this eights thing is, but in music, we don't. That's not the way that we count. Okay, I need you to add sets of 8 to this section. Okay, now, but what does that mean though?
Right, 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 right.
So
She
first it was that.
she
Go ahead.
definitely didn't have any of the rules and the fences that musicians we have. We have this has to happen this way, this has to happen this way, so that everything can work. She had none of those rules. Her creativity was way beyond what the rules we had set up.
Right, right. It had transcended.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, so she's tried to come a little bit this direction. Actually, she is actually taking a history of jazz course right now.
Okay.
She got back in school. It seems like that's something that a lot of folks have done. During the pandemic, there's it's been pretty destructive to people's careers and stuff. But one way to try to make it a positive thing is maybe, okay, let me see what this education thing's about. So
Mm-hmm.
she decided to go back to school. So she's taking a history of jazz course right now, and she was asking me, what did she say? She was saying something about pitch bending. So they're going through, like, there's some terms. She's learning these terms, and she was asking. She was like, swing, like, swing the eighth notes, or she was talking to me like this, and I thought it's pretty cute. She had a lot. She had a lot of choices of courses to take. Of course, I took it as a. She's trying to learn more about something that I do, which I take that to. So it took all this time before trying to get her to stop counting in eights, and now she decided to just go the whole way. But I interviewed her on this series also, and that was a good interview, and
I watched it.
yeah, and that was fun. It was kind of interesting because we I kind of, tongue in cheek, the whole social distancing thing, and we were in the same house, but you can look in here and see there's not a whole lot of space. This is where my gear is. There's not a lot of space for her down here. So, and then also keeping with sort of consistency with the other interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, you can sit up in the family room or something, and we'll do it like that. So let's talk about how you grew up, man. So tell us about yourself and where you're from, how you grew up, maybe something about your childhood. Maybe, I guess you could focus around. I mean, you can share whatever you want to, but in particular, maybe focus on some, what kind of music and stuff was happening around the house, and maybe some
Sure.
early mentors, early opportunities with music, and all of that.
I'm from Akron, Ohio. I grew up in.
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
Grew up in the church, and far as my mother and father were concerned, that was the only music that was happening, you know. So there was no other music being played in the house, and basically the instruments that I picked were basically out of necessity. So we didn't really have a whole lot of instruments at the house, so it would be pots and pans and stuff. So I started off as a drummer, banging with combs and brushes on tables and everything else like that. So eventually they bought me a drum set. And since we didn't have a drummer, I got put on the drums at church before I could even reach all the pedals and everything. So that's how it basically started. And then at a certain point, my father said, you know, drummers don't make as much money as a piano player. So maybe you ought to switch to piano. So, my father allowed me to get a keyboard, and when they were not home, I would sit in front of VH1 and try to pick out every song that I heard on the videos that they had. So that was my little escape to get away from all the church music I had to listen to at other times. But and out of necessity, I got put on keys at church, you know, that type of thing. So I was really confined. You know, it was not like I had a big palette of music. It's not until I got a little more serious about it. I was in the 12th grade. My father just started saying, he recognized my ear was good. You know, I didn't have any formal training. I never took classes or anything like that. I wish I did, but I didn't. So from playing that with VH1, my ear started getting to the point where I can hear it and play it, you know. So he would just, you know, his friends would be over and he would just say, my son can play anything he hears. So he would just turn on Anita Baker and say, here, play this. You know, I'm sitting there, you know, picking things out with two fingers like this, embarrassed as all get out. But he was like, yeah, just keep picking it until you get it. So I think, you know, he pushed me to be on the spot the best I can be. And I guess my big break wasn't until I got to New Salem and I saw what was really going on in the world of music, as far as churches are concerned. I consider myself a big fish in a small pond in Akron, and there wasn't a lot of things going on. So I had no idea that once I got to New Salem, and I was like, these musicians don't make mistakes. It's like they all teach music. They all got degrees in music, and here I'm coming in here playing, you know, just having a good time. And I never forget when I talked to you one day about practicing, and you changed my whole concept of practicing. I was a guy who I practiced what I had to learn, and then I practiced what I already knew. And you helped me to see that you need to practice what you don't know, and you need to write it down. You need to make a list of what the things that you're practicing and what you're trying to accomplish, and keep track of it. And I was blown away by that. I'm like, practice what I don't know? I don't know it. So how am I going to practice it? But it really opened me up after that, to be able to do some greater things. So I would love to, you know, be the first time I got to thank you for that after I see what the rewards are for those in my playing and my understanding.
Well, man, thanks for saying that. Um, yeah, you know the practicing thing. Um, it it is counterintuitive to uh, to play stuff that you don't know. But the more you play that you don't know, even when it sounds horrible, sounds terrible. I interviewed Walt Weiskopf, and Walt Weiskopf he's the saxophone player with Steely Dan,
Oh, okay, okay.
and great player. There's been a lot of great saxophone players. Michael Brecker played with Steely Dan. Chris Potter played with that band. Walt is he's on par with those other guys, and um, I met Walt when I was going to college. I was on my undergrad, and my saxophone professor went on a sabbatical for a year, and I was not very happy about that. But what he did was he brought in like a bunch of really killing guys to do week-long residencies to teach his studio. So one of them that he brought in was Chris Potter. Another one he brought in was Seamus Blake, and I interviewed Seamus. And then Walt Weiskopf. And the one that the conversations that I had with Walt are the ones that I remember the most. He's like full of all of these sort of. So one thing that he used to say all the time was, "Never perform in the practice room," and that just like stuck with me immediately. And I repeat that over and over. You know, never perform in the practice room. It's like, well, wait a minute. What does that mean? Don't perform in the practice room. Well, you know, performance is it's something that's already been polished for presentation. It's, you know, performance is something that you would right now you'd feel comfortable playing in front of anybody. You know, that's performance. Practice would be, you know, when it sounds bad and you're struggling, you can't you can't get out of it. You can't play it as fast as you want to play it. Heck, you can't even play it.
Mm-hmm.
That's practicing. And he used to always say, everyone deserves an opportunity to sound terrible.
Okay.
I was like, why do I sound terrible though? You know, but if you give yourself a chance to sound terrible, then you never know where you're. You'll never know what your potential is. I mean, because you're just kind of playing the stuff that you can always already play. But yeah, so I have to credit for what it was I was talking to you about. I have to credit Walt for that.
Okay.
That was a lesson I learned from him. And frankly, that was something that my dad was teaching me as I was. My dad was my teacher all the way until I went to college, and he was a great saxophone player. And you know, he had specific things he was practicing, you know, but he didn't call it practice. He said he would say, "All right, Thunder, go get your horn and let's play." You know, and somewhere along the line of trying to be responsible and studious and all of that, I mean you can get to the point with the whole practicing thing where you start to lose maybe some of the inspiration, or you start to lose some of the, you know, and thinking about practicing like drudgery because of the terminology. And so actually I've tried to recently I've been trying to go back to the way that I thought about music when I was a kid. When it
Hmm.
just seemed like I was just having a good time and playing, and I was accomplishing a lot because my dad was telling me stuff that I needed to learn, but I didn't really think about it as practicing, and it was something that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Whereas I don't really want to. I don't really want to practice. Now I love to fart around though.
Hmm.
That's like my favorite thing. I can waste a lot of time with gear. You know, oh, what this effect about? Let me, you know, I can waste a lot of hours that way. Uh, you know, just playing the instrument, and that's not, well, that's not its no value. It has value. Spending time with the instrument is still uh, developing intimacy with the instrument. So I mean, so you're still spending that time, and you need to spend that time. And there's no replacement for spending that time, having spent that time. But yeah,
Yeah. I could totally understand how you feel on that. I just got a analog board. It was my first time, and it doesn't have presets. So whatever sound you create is the sound that you have in the moment. So you can't go back to it unless you know what you set. So some people just take pictures, but learning that instrument is like a vortex of or a abyss of lost time, because you look up and like, okay, I got to get to bed by 8 o'clock. Boom, it's 10 o'clock. Well, I just got to figure this one more thing out. It's 12 o'clock, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, okay, I got to just leave. But yeah, I totally understand you because I'm a gear junkie myself.
now one thing I noticed, it seemed like when I had arrived at New Salem, it was right around the time that you had started learning bass.
Yes. Yeah.
And you, I mean, and we had lots of conversations about bass, and about gear and amps and all kind of, and all kind of stuff like that. And and every time I came over to your place, that's like the first place that you went to is you would grab the bass. So how did that? Why did you want to learn bass? Like what was it about the? Was it just something about the instrument, or was it another situation where there maybe was an opportunity, and you just wanted to develop skills so that you could say yes to that opportunity?
Um, well, I guess it really started back when I was a kid. I had this dream, vision, whatever you want to call it, um, that my gift was simply a faucet pouring out, and it doesn't matter what instrument I chose. I was still going to be able to get the same thing out of it if I spent the time with that instrument. So, out of necessity, or kind of a nudging from my father, who was a singer, it would be good that my son become an accompanist. So that's what I did. But it doesn't mean that that was going to be the only thing I could do. So after kind of getting that idea cultivated in myself over the years, I just decided to pick up the bass to see if I really believed what I dreamed and what I had a vision of, and it was true. It to me, the bass was so similar to what I already knew, um, based off of the notes were in a line. Here's where I have a problem. Any instrument where the notes are not in a line, like your saxophone. If the notes are not linear in a line, I can't see the pattern. Like I see it, look, I pick up a guitar. It's a linear pattern. So right away, my brain begins to say, okay, well, here's what the octave will be. This is where the third is. This is where the fifth is. So we got our chord, we could just start working everything out from there. But since you have like a trumpet per se with 3 valves, then therefore my concept is out of the it doesn't work anymore on those type of things. But that's how I picked up the bass.
Okay, so part of that, part of that makes me think that you're somewhat of a visual learner.
Okay.
Like the spatial aspect of it is part of the process. Do you think you're more of a visual learner or more of an oral learner? All of us, by the way, all of us are some of both. None of us are just oral.
Yeah.
Unless you're blind, But do you think you're more of a visual learner?
Yeah, probably. Like my dad used to have these sayings. Like he used to be like, I love George Duke. He liked the playing of George Duke, and he said, well, George Duke has 10 fingers, and his 10 fingers are not better than yours. They don't have any more superpower. George Duke just spent time with this instrument. And if you spend time, not saying that you're going to sound like George Duke, but you could do some of the things that he can do, because there's no improvement on the structure of a finger. It's just the understanding behind it. Those are the type of things that he would tell me. And meanwhile, like I said, we grew up in a house where there was all church music. When I tell you that he introduced me to these things later, it was on the slide. It was on the side. My mom wasn't there. So that's how those kind of things popped off. And he would tell me, like, listen to this song, Herbie Hancock, Butterfly. Listen to that, listen to this, listen to that. And I would do those things. And I was like, Dad, I can't play that. And he was like, they got the same 10 fingers you got. Why not? I don't see it. But yeah, that's how I grew up.
The spatial thing, seeing where all the notes are, versus a somewhat abstract placement of notes based on finger combinations, right? Like saxophone or trumpet. Now, it is and it isn't abstract. It's there obviously is a logic to it, and part of the logic is more keys down, that's going to tend to equal a lower note because you're using more of the tube.
Right.
Less fingers down, right? But then there's combinations of fingers that will tend to close things, either open keys or close keys a little bit further down the tube, a little bit further down the tube. And some of those are going to look pretty abstract, because of the somewhat strange looking combinations. Now, one advantage a horn player has over like a guitar player is on the guitar, there's multiple places on the neck that you can play the same note. Right? I'm not talking about octaves. I'm saying the same pitch.
The same note, yes.
Okay. So same thing now on saxophone, other than maybe a false fingering, there's really one way to play each note. So the advantage there is once I learn where that one location is for that note, then I know that's where I have to go. This is the fingering for that one note. Whereas on guitar, since there are all of these different ways that you can play things, it can lead to, and a lot of guitar players, bass players, struggle with this, not really knowing the neck of the instrument, not really knowing where all the notes are, and it can make it really challenging to do stuff like sight read. Because since you have the scene all over the neck, there is areas that I should play notes. Now on saxophone, there's one place to play those notes, and so as long as I know what that one place is, then So it's kind of like a multiplication thing. And then on keyboard and also on guitar, the spatial component, there is a physical limitation of playing certain things. Let's talk about keyboard. So if you have like really wide interval, spastic kind of like wide interval stuff, that's gonna be really challenging to play at any kind of velocity, right? But on something like saxophone, where everything is right here, even if it's different finger combinations, but everything is right here. Jumping around, beep, that kind of stuff. It's still not particularly ergonomic, but it's more possible.
Okay. I've never heard any of these things that you're telling me about the wind instruments and how there's an advantages. I've never even heard that, so I'm sitting here listening like this is really great for me, because maybe one day I'll pick one up now.
Now, obviously, a limitation to a wind instrument is you're going to be playing one note at a time. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the harmonic, possibility, and that's part of the reason why. For the physics are different for those instruments. One concept with the physics is going to facilitate the ability to easily access more than one note at a time, and the other one, although maybe it provides more sort of flexibility with respect to playing, acrobat something or whatever. It's not an advantage with respect to play more than one note at a time. So it's each instrument has its advantage and disadvantage. So what kind of stuff are you working on musically?
Because of the pandemic, I'm working on a lot of Zoom projects. I've done bass projects, they're pre-recorded, put on a suit, got jogging pants on the bottom, but since you can't see them,
That's like the running joke.
Yeah. But it's serious. It's real.
Yep.
I've been doing tracks for people. Music has changed because of the pandemic. Like, I'm not on the road every weekend anymore, traveling with LDNL, but it's been more people wanting tracks for their churches and things like that. So I've been, writing tracks for people who want all live instruments, and sending them off, doing that type of thing, and as well as some private parties on Zoom, things like that, where I have to play music for different parts of their programs that are being done on Zoom, and also musically, I've been taking this time to expand what I do and be better at it, get more proficient at Ableton, because I use Ableton for church services to to make us sound bigger than we are. I use it uh, also with when I play out at, like, I play at the Royce, things like that. But a 3-piece or a 4-piece, but to make it sound a certain way. So getting more proficient at that, getting more proficient at the programs I use for recording. So this is extra time has been time of growth for me. So that's what I've been doing.
That's good to hear. One thing that I've heard frequently, like hear it all the time, is this idea that somehow, because musicians have been out of work, that uh, we have all this extra time now, and so that's going to, they can't imagine, you can't imagine how great the music is going to be after the pandemic, once there's some gigs, because of all this time, to be working on oneself and all like that. I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. Unfortunately, I'm a realist, and that means that I'm going to factor into this what I know based on observable reality. And the reality is that musicians, artists, are inspired often by performing opportunities, by playing with other musicians, by the relationships that they have with other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And often that serves as a powerful catalyst to pull out of you stuff that you didn't even know it was there, and having other folks to collaborate with. I've done a number of multicam kind of videos, and a bunch of other things, and doing these interviews and stuff. A lot of this stuff has been facilitated by the pandemic, but boy, do I miss just that consistent playing, with other folks. Now, fortunately, I have a church gig, and we've been playing every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a regular with Ableton, also using it for the same purposes that you're using it for. And so fortunately, I've had that. And I've had some other gig opportunities. Matter of fact, tomorrow night I'll be playing at the Blue Note Jazz Cafe, and then I'll be live streaming the concerts from there. And I've had some other things that, happening, but just not having those regular performing opportunities has been kind of a drag.
I hear you. I hear you.
No.
I hear you. But before the pandemic hit, it was like I was doing a lot of gigs and a lot of traveling, and it would be like, man, if I just had enough time to fix this problem in the show. Like, with LDNL, we did a show, and it was kind of set. Like, it's a set 30 songs we're gonna do. But improving on that show when you're always gone doing the show is kind of slow sledding, because it's like, since you're always gone, we're not practicing to improve it. So I silently to myself, I'm going, man, if I had time, I would do this. If I had time, I would do that. And that would make this easier, And then when faced with all this time, I had to buckle down and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Because at first it was just like, okay, I got this time, maybe I can get on the video game, and I can get these games off. But
that's right.
with the help of my wife, it was, she helps me maintain my goals and my focus on what I'm trying to do musically, and she reminds me of some of my my complaints that I have. Like, you talk about doing this, and you talk about bettering this. You got time to go do that. So she helps me stay focused. So I'm blessed to
Yeah,
have that.
and that is that's a blessing. In fact, it was my wife that, before I decided to go back to school to do a doctorate, I had been saying to her that I wanted to do something, that I wanted to do a doctorate X, Y, and Z, and um, and every, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, she would just say, "So what's going on with you still thinking about doing a doctorate?" She, just floating it under there, not, hey, get our hands off, I'm
No,
not trying to tell you what to do.
not too
You know?
pushy.
Right, right. So she did that until I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And uh, and she kept pushing me. And the thing that pushed me over the edge was a call that I had with my dad. I called him because I was I wanted to do it. And I was like, I figured out how to do this, but I really want to have to. Goodness, there's a bunch of stuff that's happening right now. Why do I have to try to all of that kind of stuff? And so I said to myself, I was like, oh no, what do you think? And he said, well, he says, fine, now, you'll have the degree, or you won't have the degree. And if you don't agree, you won't even go wise that you didn't pursue the degree. You'll just regret it. It's like, well, I guess I'm going back. So then what happened was I got close to the end of my degree program, and had basically done all the work, and there was a few more things I had to wrap up, and it was just in one and for like about a year, it's kind of at a standstill. I wasn't really pushing towards getting that final, and then here's that kind of tapping on my shoulder again, like, you trying to finish this? Trying to finish this. Every several months. Why you want to finish this? One time she said, well, I'm not going to worry about it if you're not going to worry about it. And I knew that when she said, I was like, okay, I probably should. I should probably go ahead and finish this.
She was like, go ahead and close out.
Yeah.
So how long ago was it that you got this done?
Let's see here. I think so it must have been 19. I think it was summer of 19
Okay.
that everything was complete. And so what happened was I completed summer of 19, but I was too late to walk in that fall semester. No. What happened? Some kind of scheduling issue. I couldn't go to commencement. And I was like, okay. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just go spring semester. No big deal. So I bought the cap and gown. It's sitting in a box over there. Hasn't even been opened. In fact, I made a mistake and I ordered two of the what are they called? The regalia stuff. I ordered two of them, so I have two regalias and a cap and gown. I got all of that, but that we're talking about spring 2020.
Right.
So everything is, so they're doing virtual stuff, right? And then I was like, okay, no big deal. This thing's going to roll over pretty quickly. I'll just catch it in the fall. Now we in the next spring. And I want to do it because, my son is 7 now. And, I just, you're trying to establish a certain pattern or whatever. And, I want him to see that. Of course, I want my wife to see it in my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the reason I'm doing it. I ain't doing it for me because I'm straight. I don't need to, stand in a line. I that kind of, that does sound kind of, that sort of belittle the thing. But that doesn't mean it's more for them. So maybe not this semester. Honestly, I would just like to push on Aaron's mask. I would like to be like with mask. So I might just wait until like 2022 or something.
Right.
Graduated like 5 years ago. Since what? Yeah. But yeah. All right. So, so we talked a little bit about what you've been kind of using some of the pandemic time to do. One thing I always appreciated about you is, you're all about your kids, and you always struck me as being really a family kind of guy. You really prioritizing family, especially your kids. And there's not enough of that sort of thing going around, especially musicians that prioritize their families. We all know the stories, about kids that hate their dad because he was never gone. Oh, I'm sorry, he was never gone. He was never home. He was never around. He wasn't supportive, and all of that. You have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I grew up seeing family lived out in my household, where my dad felt a certain way and my parents felt a certain way about me and my brother. And they always were family first. And also our extended family was like that. Every holiday we got together and did music, singing, playing. Everybody brought their talent, so I grew up seeing strong families everywhere. So it was natural for me that my music would come, second to them, because it was only to enhance their lives, that type of thing. And my kids are all unique in their own ways, and it's easy to enjoy the time that you have with each one of them. My daughter's now 24. My oldest, my son is 22. Aaliyah's my oldest, 24. Kaylin is 22. Cadence is 15. And now Carson.
That's incredible there.
You're right.
Incredible there. That don't make no sense. That's wrong there.
Yeah, she's a grown up too. She plays saxophone too. So
man, how come I haven't gotten any phone calls here?
Man, so she was playing saxophone for a while, and then they didn't have any bassoon players in the band. So
okay, so she's playing bassoon now.
So she jumped to bassoon, and then she went into singing. But I was just amazed because we already talked about how I see instruments, and for her, she don't have any of those rules. She's like Lori. They don't have the rules that prevent them from doing anything. It's like whatever I conceive in my mind to do, I can do. And I have Carson, my 2-year-old, who is the same way. She wants to play everything. You know, she's just a little musician at heart. And so, yeah, I want to grow them in music. I'm not too pushy about music because my son, he's a track. He runs track at Ohio State. You know, so he wanted to do music early, but I guess the girls didn't really dig on musicians the way he thought. So sports he went. My oldest daughter, she played cello, yeah, at Fort Hayes. So you know, they all putting the kids first, you know, and enjoying your time with them, and really being there and being around for them is it's not hard. You know, you find a way if that's what you want to do. If that's what your goal is, you find a way. So I was fortunate to find a way.
You know, it's interesting. Hamilton Harden and I have had some interesting conversations about, you know, kids. When is the appropriate time to start teaching? You know, if you know, if your kid even shows aptitude or shows interest, you know, and this kind of regular thing that happens. I talked to Chris Johnson about this also. These are both guys that I interviewed, and you know, just this idea of, you know, people constantly asking, well, what instrument does it, you know, does such and such play? You know, oh, they're not going to be able to help, but they're going to be a musician. You know, that kind of constant, because I'm a musician, that means that my kid is going to be a musician. And it is true that sometimes that kind of travels in families, and it is the case that he's gonna, you know, he's gonna have to do something with music, you know, at least through high school. And that's not because I want him to decide he wants to be a professional musician. You know, it's because there's all kinds of benefits to it. I mean, even if from his knowledge about music and his, you know, developing discipline with something, better study skills, even for other classes, there's all these great benefits from, you know, learning how to like work with others, learning how to take criticism. You know, somebody says, "Hey, would you just play that? You're not playing the right notes right now." You know, and just how you can learn how to, you know, not take things as some sort of personal assault, but rather just take it as, you know, take it in a healthy manner to improve yourself. Just all of those kind of skills, you know, playing in band and stuff in school, all of that stuff is you develop those skills in a way that there's not many ways that you can develop those same skills. So certainly I want him to do that. And then of course there's the benefit of learning about music and actually learning how to appreciate it. So you know the difference between good music and music that ain't that good. And so then, you know, hopefully you can be part of what supports stuff that is worthy rather than just, you know, stuff that is popular. Nothing against stuff that is popular, as long as it's also good stuff. But we know there's a lot of stuff that's popular that ain't good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I don't even know that I want him to be a musician per se. You know, I think about all the possible lifestyles, you know, and it's hard to be a musician. Goodness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Unless you have a need, like you have an itch that you can't scratch, you just have to do it. So I don't even remember choosing music. It was just always something that I was going to do. You know, I honestly, I really don't remember choosing it. I was just, you know, by the time that maybe I even had any questions about that, I was so far out in the middle of the lake that I could have been like, well, hey, I can. The shore on this side is closer where I'm going to, but I could decide to go back if I want. You
Yeah.
know,
I
what do you
I
think about that?
I just think musician being a musician should be reserved for those who can't help it, as opposed to someone who's trying to um, force it on a child or something like that, because there's too much time and focus that needs to be spent to be great at this, as opposed to, like, not to say that other jobs you don't have to spend time, but other jobs it won't be as noticeable that you're not great as if you're playing an instrument. You playing an instrument and there's other musicians there, they'll know you're not great immediately. They'll know that your technique is wrong immediately. But if you are, a great administrator at your job, you might can just look like you're great, but really not be all that great at your job. No one's gonna know right away. But musician, people can hear your time spent immediately. They don't have to. They don't have to know what your influences are. They don't have to know how long you've been playing. They can hear how long you've been playing and hear what you've been listening to, and if you're serious about your craft or not. So, and
That's true.
a lot of times people, the jobs that are offered to you are based on that time spent.
Definitely. And and there's and then obviously disproportionately, I think musicians have challenges with their family dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And because what's a 9 to 5 for a musician? What does that mean? I don't know what that is. What's that? Because for a musician, you working when the gigs are calling, when they're calling you, and especially for people that have sort of like a hybrid career, you know, they may have a day job, but really they see themselves as musicians, and so all of this spare time is devoted to getting that music thing happening, or traveling on the weekends, or I always put it this way, and people don't understand this. It's as if music is not really treated like a job. It's not treated like a real profession by a lot of people, because we actually like to do it. We love it, right? We have a passion for it. So people don't see it as being work.
Mm-hmm.
So regularly, regularly what I see happening, and this has been the case for me. I show up to somebody's house party or something. I don't know. Could be a holiday party. Could be whatever. Just because I was invited, and somebody will say, "Man, you should have brought your horn with you." like, I'm like, look, you're a plumber. If I invited you over to my house, would you like me to say, you know what? I have been having an issue with this toilet in here. I should have asked you to bring your tools.
You should have brought your tools.
this is to be just a relaxing gathering, just people getting together. I don't know. Maybe it's like a Bible study or something, or whatever. It's supposed to be something like that, and I should have brought my horn. It's like, but but really, what this is that when the 9 to 5 people are on, as a professional musician, you're on. When the 9 to 5 people are off, as a professional musician, you're on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, considering the hours. I mean, working at clubs, playing private parties after work. After regular work hours are over, holiday parties. All of this stuff is when everybody else, that's their hanging out. You're working. That's right. So if you don't really, as you said before, if you don't really have a need to do it, a real passion for it, what is the sense in trying to force that? And of course, now I bought my son a set of drums, and he has an electric guitar with a pedal board, and he has a trumpet.
Oh, wow. That's a suggestion there. With the pedal board?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And his own amp. Well, it's actually my amp, but it's an all tube amp. So if he ever decides that he really wants to do it, then yeah, of course, everything that I know, I'll teach him. But do I want to like bully him into it? Absolutely not, because it's not, because it's working, doing the recruiting that I do, which is is a primary part of my job at Ohio State. Progressively, as you see that the music industry and the kind of jobs that are actually available, and the shrinking number of available gigs and everything else. And then, I mean, look at what happened with the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to all of those musicians? Look, this is episode 118. Most of the interviews that I've done have been musicians. And I'd say 50% of those musicians have been touring musicians. And all of that dried up to nothing, zero, overnight. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? I mean, people are counting on you, and everybody says the same thing too. It's like 2020 was supposed to be this like record-setting year, and like all of these like crazy bookings and stuff that everybody's talking about this, and then to have that stuff just totally pulled out from under you like that,
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah, I was already looking at my schedule for 2020 in the beginning of the year. Like, okay, I have to go here at this time. I got to go here at this time. I gotta learn this music for this and learn this music for that. And overnight, boom, gone.
Yeah.
Gone. All that practice for nothing. It's just over with.
Yeah, it's but as you said, there is maybe a silver lining, and that is more time with family, more time to work out some of those kinks that maybe we didn't have a chance to work out. This whole interview series is directly as a result of the pandemic. So, that's been a positive thing. It's at least kept me somewhat sane.
Yeah. Look, I would have never pegged you for the type of person who would be doing interviews. You just, you just always struck me as so musically cerebral. I just didn't see you having, you know, conversations about it. But now that I think about it, you are so cerebral that that would make absolute sense that you would be able to turn this into a opportunity to just talk to people. And I've seen like some of your interviews with like you know, Victor Wooten and Taylor. What was play piano for Gretchen Parlato? I can't think of his last name, but yeah, yeah. You know, some of those, you know, some of those things. You know, he's one of my heroes. So it's just like this makes total sense that you would be able to turn this opportunity, turn this time into an opportunity to talk. You know, with some of the greatest minds in music. Not, you know, putting myself in that group, but I'm just saying, you are really doing something that's pretty incredible. You know.
Well, thank you. Like I said, you said it's something that I did do even prior to the pandemic, but I didn't really have a way to do it. You know, I didn't have a. When I mean by way, I was fluent with the technology. I could record them, but the kind of people that I wanted to interview, they wouldn't have been available. They would have never been available.
Right.
Or it would have been so difficult to line up schedules because not only are they busy, I was like crazy, all kind of crazy busy too. And so trying to find holes, but with the way that this has worked out, my interviews have been around this time on weekdays because my son is sleeping now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why it ends up working out. And that's why in the beginning, when I started doing these, I was able to, do 5 or 6 a week. It's because I was waiting until he was going to bed and then I come down and do an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only reason why Wynton, for instance, Wynton Marsalis would have been available at that time on a weekday is because of the pandemic. That's the only reason. Or Victor Wooten or Taylor Eichste or, yeah, it's been, I would have preferred this thing not to have happened,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually, I think, facilitated, an opportunity for me to do this. And another reason I wanted to do it, was just to have conversations with people that I admire and respect and people that I hadn't been in touch with for a long time. Just to spend that time, because that's one of the things that I miss the most is not having those conversations like, at rehearsals and, right before the gig starts, or the gig, you're playing the gig and just like the little comments, like somebody turns around and tells a joke, like inside he says something, all of that kind of stuff, and just to try to be able to capture some of that. And no, it's not the same as actually being with people in person, but it's, I'm grateful that we do have this technology to be able to do this.
Yeah, me too. I found new ways, to make things happen musically. And so, when you get put in a situation, that's where that creativity kicks in and says, well, what you gonna do now? And before the pandemic, I would have never thought that so many things would be happening over Zoom, and choirs are getting together and pre-recording and all the pre-production that goes into that and things like that. You know, we our church is on live and Facebook Live and also streaming on YouTube. So, you know, there's just a lot of things that go into that pre-production before service starts in the morning. But those are the kind of things that I would have never crossed my mind before. I would have only been thinking about what's my part, you know. So here we are, and now we're expanded. Our thinking is expanded. We're better in certain ways because of it. And when the pandemic is over, we'll still have these skills.
Yeah, and that definitely is something that's positive that came out of this. I'm the minister of music at Second Baptist, and when the pandemic hit, I mean, I literally was bringing some of my webcams so that we could stream on, so we could do Zoom, and go to Facebook Live or something, but just using the integrated microphones just to capture what was in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from that to, two PTZ, cameras, and, a full-time sound guy. All of that stuff was facilitated by this pandemic happening, because we wouldn't have been forced to be live streaming, on YouTube every Sunday. We wouldn't have, it would have been years. It would have been years before we got there. But in this situation, we got there, we had to get there with the quickness. And then when this thing is over, obviously we're going to continue to live stream.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure is built.
Well, because also, to be honest, there's some people who believe church now can be done from home because of the pandemic. They're going to be like, well, I don't need to go out there. I can do this from the house now.
Hold on.
I think we have opened up Pandora's box with this. Hey, you said the PTZ camera, is that the camera that you don't have to turn it? It like can just change the focus.
Yeah. PTZ stands for Pan Tilt Zoom. Yeah, so it can do all of that. There's the tilt, there's the pan, and then it's zoom in. Yeah,
I think we're supposed to get one. But the sound team, I mean the video team, be talking about those type of things. I don't know. I just work with them, but I'm trying to learn all the aspects of what's going on.
Yeah, but it's like it's definitely been a learning and growing experience, and I pray that we can get out of this thing quickly, but I know that it's not going to be like it was before. It probably never will be. I don't know. And honestly, I don't even know what that statement means. I don't know what that means. That like it was, because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there will be gigs and other kind of opportunities to play, and maybe people will be so hungry because they've looped up, to go out and see live music. But maybe also what it means is that because of everyone sort of developing this live stream technology, and us having sort of a tester, an incubator for sort of cultivating a certain desire or tolerance of doing things from home. I mean, consider how much gas money you can save
Mhm.
if you don't have to go anywhere. How many jobs that probably have been reimagined.
Mhm.
You know, oh, we don't need to have all of these in-person board meetings. Let's just do everything on. Let's just do it on Zoom. So you wonder how much of that stuff is going to stay around, or how much of that stuff is just going to be thrown in the garbage can like good riddance. I hated that stuff the whole time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. I think Zoom is here to stay. I think they have proven that they are a worthy commodity, especially when they're not even asking for no money right now. You know, they're allowing us to connect in ways. We even did our family reunion over Zoom,
yeah.
um, and because before the pandemic, that wasn't always possible, even though there was no pandemic, because people were different parts of the country and may not be able to catch a flight or things like that. But we were able to connect now, whether you're, overseas or whatever or not. So I think some of this stuff, like you said, is going to be here to stay and be forever changed, um, for good or bad.
All right, man. Well, um, it was really great talking to you again, and we'll have to do it again, even if it isn't for an interview. We'll have to do it again soon. Maybe we can get together sometime. I'll wear my mask, I promise.
I would like that. I would like that. I would absolutely like that because you said your son is 7.
Oh,
Wow.
goodness gracious. He's in first grade, man. This is,
Wow.
it's not right. I want things to just stay the way they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get him back to about 3 years old, and he can just stay that age. And I'd be
That's about how old he was in my mind. I was thinking like, okay, maybe not 3, maybe 4, or maybe 5, pushing it, but 7. Wow.
yeah. But you told me that Cadence is 15.
15. Yeah.
Now that don't make no sense. Now that's crazy there.
15. And she is a little lady. Yeah. So
All right,
time
man.
is moving, brother.
Well, I will. I'll be talking to you soon. You have a good one. God bless, man.
You too. Thank you, sir.
All right.